Welcome to Ancient Secrets. Like a podcast, it's a Zoomcast where you get the opportunity to meet God's actual cast. I'm Rabbi Flip of Congregation Micah in Nashville, Tennessee, here to introduce you to the theological heroes of our past, so we might glean some practical wisdom for the present. After each interview, our guests will reveal their actual identities, share a little bit about their own theologies and ideologies, and the missions of the organizations they dedicate their lives to serving. So put on your imagination caps and get ready for some practical advice to help you get through these tougher times. We have with us today a truly courageous individual who not only knows how to speak truth to power, but as a military leader, he led us to war against the kings of Canaan and brought us together under his royal leadership when the ancient kingdom of Israel was first established around the 11th century before the Common Era. A proud grandpa, he counts among his descendants King David and Jesus. Please welcome to the program the fourth of the 12 sons of Jacob and Leah, whose Hebrew name means praise, and how we got our name as a people. Leader of the tribe that bears that name, the biblical Judah.
Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight.
Judah, what a treat to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing during this crazy time of social distancing?
I'm doing okay. You know, the book of Lamentations begins with Judah going into exile. It was a miserable time. People found no rest. Our pursuers overtook us in the narrow places of our lives. It doesn't have to be like that today. It is not that we have been cast out of our homes. Rather, we're forced to stay in them.
And do you have any good old-fashioned wisdom for all of us about how to get through it all?
Well, Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl once wrote, "If you have a why to live, you can endure any how." So what is your why? If you can figure out why you want to live, you'll very often find the courage of a lion to live that way.
Interesting. Judah, when your father, our patriarch Jacob, also known as Israel, went to bless you, he gave you that nickname, Gur Aryeh, young lion, and that became the symbol for your tribe.
Yes, Jerusalem was the capital city of my kingdom in biblical times, and the Lion of Judah was its symbol. I'm proud that in 1950 it was included in the emblem of Jerusalem.
Your name was also borne by Judah Maccabee, the Jewish priest who revolted against the Seleucid rule in the 2nd century before the Common Era, as told in the book of Maccabees.
I'm proud that those who bear my name have showed courage throughout Jewish history.
Is it true that the tribe of Judah was not purely Israelite, that it contained a large admixture of a number of ancient Near Eastern spin-offs, if you will?
Yes, there have always been those who wish to cast their lot with us Jews. Back in my day, there were all sorts of ites, Kenizzite tribes, Jerahmeelites, peoples who joined with us in our search for meaning, truth, and peace. Nowadays, there are Christians and other religious seekers who see in our faith great wisdom.
You were clearly the leader of your brothers, the most courageous and the strongest. Rabbinic literature portrays you as having extraordinary physical strength, that you were able to crush iron into dust with your mouth and able to shout for over 40 parsangs. That's the historical Iranian unit of walking distance, about 3.5 miles.
Yeah, I've got quite a holler.
Well, do you have any other practical wisdom for those of us enduring this pandemic?
On my deathbed, I admonished my sons not to love gold or look only upon the beauty of women, for through these things men fall into misery. Better to observe the law of God.
According to some classical rabbinic sources, your father Jacob suspected that it was you, Judah, who had killed Joseph.
Well, I was the one who delivered the coat to him, but I was also the one who suggested that we sell Joseph rather than kill him.
So you have a long history in high school of not caving to peer pressure. I know that it's not easy to speak truth to power, to approach someone who's on a higher station in life, who's in public office, or is otherwise perceived to be unapproachable. But you, Judah, you defied that order that the viceroy of Egypt gave. Were you nervous?
Well, first off, I'm not sure if it would have been easier or harder had I known it was my younger brother. It feels like a lifetime ago that I suggested my brother sell Joseph to those nomadic Ishmaelite merchants in the caravan headed for Egypt. It was a proposition that caused my father much grief, and so it haunts me to this day. I regret it terribly, but I have grown a great deal since then.
No doubt your daughter-in-law, Tamar, also taught you a lot.
Again, that was before I understood what it meant to be the leader of the family. So yes, there was a great deal of painful growth I endured, and I'm sorry that others suffered because of me. What the experience with Tamar taught me most was that we must be responsible for those around us, and it prepared me for my reconciliatory encounter with Joseph.
Yes, you certainly demonstrated leadership when you pled for your younger brother Benjamin's life, standing up to the person you thought was second command in Egypt. And you placed yourself at considerable risk by doing so. Why did you do it?
Playing along was not an option. My father would never have endured the loss of another young son. Plus, my name, Judah, I'm not just one of Jacob's sons, I am one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and the name of the nation from which all Jews are descended.
Sometimes it feels like the role of Jews in history is to be like the world's conscience.
Israel's mission, as defined early on in the biblical text, is to be a light to the nations. We Jews are meant to illuminate the darkness of immorality, enlightening the other peoples of the world with the knowledge of God and how God partners with all of humankind to make this world a better place.
Because of your actions, you've inspired Jews for millennia to continue to stand up and to approach any authority with the same courage as you, Judah, our namesake, did.
It is the Jew's role to stand for all that may be wrongly accused, for all who may be oppressed, for all who require redress in obtaining justice, and certainly to stand up to anyone with power that is acting corruptly.
It's almost time to reveal how our ancient Judah does that in the modern world. But first, a word from our sponsor.
A proud sponsor of Ancient Secrets, Congregation Micah is a vibrant and progressive synagogue serving all of Middle Tennessee, offering creative and diverse ways to celebrate Jewish life using the practices and beliefs of modern Reform Judaism as its foundation.
We're back, and welcome to the program. A Micah member, a writer, a producer, a reality show contestant, and the former Democratic candidate for U.S. Congress in Tennessee's 7th District, Mr. Justin Canoe. Justin has been Vice President of Production and Development for National Lampoon, an associate producer on the new Coming to America sequel with Eddie Murphy, and a 2-time contestant of The Amazing Race on CBS. I know you, Justin, also to be a proud husband and father, and your latest project is the Tennessee Holler, an audience-supported progressive news site that seeks not just to tell the truth, but yell the truth about what's really happening in our beloved state of Tennessee. Before we get to all of that, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what really makes you tick. Justin, what is it that makes you get out of bed in the morning? And is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Well, I think it's fitting that we're having this cosplay that we're doing because everything that Judah just talked about is really what keeps me going. I mean, I feel like I'm shot out of a cannon every morning to try to amplify the good works that people are doing in this state and highlight some of the injustices, the perceived injustices anyway. So we launched the Holler a year ago to try to do just that. And it's been a great year. We've grown pretty quickly from nothing to about 50,000 Twitter followers and 18,000 on Facebook. So what keeps me going is really what kept Judah going, which was speaking truth to power and lifting up the good works that people are doing and shining a light on the things that are going wrong and the selfishness, frankly, that I think has overtaken a lot of what we're seeing, particularly in the political arena these days.
So you're alluding already maybe to the answer, but is there anything that scares you, freaks you out?
Oh, there's a lot that scares me. The shortness of life scares me. I think one of the big takeaways from this period that we're going through is just a reminder of our own mortality and how short life is and how we need to appreciate each other. So, I think just being blunt, death scares me quite a bit. You know, not living fully and taking my family and my kids for granted. I think that's something that I try to keep in my mind as much as possible. And especially when we're being forced to spend as much time right now with our two little children as we are, it's a blessing, and I need to try to remember that even when my daughter's yelling at me about knocking over a Lego tower.
Right. Yeah, small moments. I get it. And I don't know, maybe you should just start really by telling us, you said that what motivates you is really the speaking truth to power. I do try to put a little bit of thought into my characters and why I choose certain characters to be played by certain people. And he came to mind because at certain moments, Judah was really the one there that said, hey, wait a second, something doesn't feel right here. And I know that you felt that way because I saw your passion that you brought to a congressional run. And I know you still feel that way about holding people accountable. So tell us about the Holler, how it got started maybe, and why does you do what you do?
Well, it sort of grew out of, as you mentioned, I ran for Congress in 2018. I ran because it felt like we needed more regular people standing up and speaking out, people that were going to put our neighbors first, regardless of the letter next to our names. I'm a believer that we have more in common than we realize, even in this deeply divided time. And when I was running for Congress, I felt a real lack of mediums for candidates like myself to speak through. We were constantly waiting for the few media outlets to hand us the microphone. And instead of waiting, it felt like maybe we should just build our own sound system, to put it in that way. So we launched in February. My background is entertainment and video. And it felt like through video, through that platform, we could really show what was going on, especially in our state legislature, but also at the federal level, show people what is being said as opposed to just giving our opinions about it. So video is something that you can't really argue with. This isn't, here's my opinion about what has been said. This is, watch them say it and form your own opinion. So we launched that a little over a year ago. We've had a hand in a lot of different things that I'm proud of, such as exposing some of the things that our former speaker, Glenn Cassida, was doing, to talking about this guy, Representative David Byrd, who's a real problem in our legislature. And I won't go too deep into either of those people, but just to say that this has been a platform for me to really express myself and also to help others express themselves. So once we planted our flag and raised it last February, we started to have people all across the state reach out to us with stories to talk about things that they were going through. And then just as importantly, if not more so, to talk about the good work that people are doing. For instance, a group called the Equity Alliance, which helps with voter registration and combat voter suppression, or Human Rights Campaign to deal with LGBT issues, or, Mom's Demand that was dealing with gun rights. There are a lot of things that our state legislature deals with and handles that, I think they don't hear from enough perspectives, to put it lightly. And this was a way for us to amplify a lot of the things that are being said out there that maybe don't get enough of a chance to be heard.
Those are all such beautiful, deep thoughts. Was there any consideration of calling the Holler the shofar, or did you not feel?
Well, Holler is Southern for shofar.
All right, good. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you've sort of created this venue. I think that what we've learned is that we are living in two worlds right now, and one of those worlds is a digital world. And the idea that you would have access and be able to create a voice for others and to share a moral compass voice, we just appreciate that from Congregation Micah. We love what you're doing.
Well, I'm glad you're doing this. I think that to resist the digital world is just futile at this point. I've felt that for a long time. I had a show when I lived in California called Let's Get Digital, where we basically tried to pull people towards that. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it really democratizes everything. Obviously, there's a flip side to it. It can be complicated and intimidating. It can also empower people that maybe shouldn't, be amplified. But on balance, I'm a big believer that giving everybody access to these tools is a positive. And, even if some things have happened in the last few years, I won't get too political about it, that have, put people in positions that maybe they don't necessarily deserve. I think it will also help rectify those problems. And we have also seen so many examples of things getting highlighted and being brought to people's attention that maybe wouldn't have otherwise, back when there were really only 3 channels and everybody was watching the same thing. So I think things have really fragmented and complicated a little bit, but at the end of the day, everybody has access to these tools, and I would really encourage people to embrace the new world. And I'm glad to see you doing it. And I would also offer us up as, not just the holler, but as myself, like if people are feeling intimidated by it, I'm happy to try to help and answer questions.
Yeah, I think you alluded also when you were speaking earlier about the video, like the power of image. And that's something at Micah we've explored a great deal using screens during our worship services. The idea of helping to tell the story. We know when someone sees an image, it's like hearing music. There's an immediate, often reaction to that. And it can be positive or it could be challenging. And so the power of being able to see those images ourselves, I think, is really, it's something. The digital world, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I just, if you don't control that, if you don't put that out there, then you're just leaving a void. And, frankly, I think this is like, it's like having it's just your voice. And, you have these opportunities to put it out there. There's all these different platforms. You can sort of pick what strikes you as the thing that you gravitate towards, whether it's Instagram with images, or Zoom with interviews, or Facebook with, posts and links, or Twitter, which I find to be kind of like the hive mind. They each have their purpose. And, I think it's an exciting time to be able to get your voice out there and express yourself and have access to other people. I mean, when have we ever had so much access to the people who are the tastemakers and influencers out there? And, I find it really exhilarating, and I really encourage people to embrace it.
Yeah, I think there's an intimidating factor also for those of us who love the ancient and the sacred from before. But we actually have as one of our guests, Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook, who is very fond of saying that the trick really is to make the old feel new and the new feel just as sacred and holy as the old. And so what we find, I think, is very often technology, the advancements are out in front of often the implications. But here during our current situation of this pandemic, it is creating social connections and ability for people to tap in ways never heard of before.
Well, I think that's what's really cool about what you're doing, and the message that you bring pretty much every time I see you speak is kind of making the old relevant to what we're going through, and, finding the lessons in the Bible and in, the Torah and everything that we've been through, and how can it impact what we're going through now. And I think, even though this forward-looking stuff is intimidating, there are still ways to bring tools from the past with us and help us deal with this stuff, especially in times like this. I mean, we know that these are not unique to us, that there have been times like this all throughout history. This right now happens to be our moment. And so, refreshingly, we can sit home, and that's our job right now, is to stay home and be together. That's a lot easier than some of the jobs that Anne Frank had to go through, or, my grandparents who survived Auschwitz had to go through. So, it's easy to sit around and say, woe is me, and look at the unemployment numbers and look at all the economic impact and the death that we're going through, but at the end of the day, this is not new. We will get through this, and we can use the past as a way to keep hope.
That is what we are trying to do here. Rabbi Laurie likes to say, what are the positive pandemic moments? What can we glean from this? What can we learn? And it's a question it's not always easy to ask now and answer, but we'll continue to ask, and maybe we will find some answers.
There's so much. I mean, there's so much good that we're seeing. How many cities throughout the world are taking time at 7 p.m. every night to applaud the healthcare workers? Those are moments of humanity. I know of people here in Tennessee who have launched things like the mask making, the homemade masks, or, Adopt a Senior is something that one of my wife's friends has started, where 6,000 people are now sending gifts to high school seniors in Tennessee to make them feel appreciated. There are lots of incredible moments of humanity. In Clarksville comes to mind, where a 6-year-old boy with cystic fibrosis caught the virus, and his neighbors had a parade along his street where about 50 cars came out and drove by his window waving and honking. There are things that are happening that remind us how much we really care about each other. And I think that's what we have to make sure we take with us.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Justin, Congregation Micah, thanks you for your playfulness and your willingness to share more about who you are and what you do. We're happy to put some information up about the Hollers so people can get in touch with you and get in touch and start following. We thank you also for educating us on one of Judaism's great figures, Judah. We hope you go from strength to strength.
tnholler.com. Thank you for having us, Flip.
Absolutely. Thank you also to our viewers out there. We look forward to having you join us next time on Ancient Secrets, Congregation Micah's Zoomcast, where you can meet God's actual cast.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.